Thanks for joining us in the University Health Center Nutrition Kitchen. Today we're going to be making a black bean and veggie quesadilla using the ingredients shown here. We'll be taking a pretty basic recipe, a quesadilla, and adding a couple different veggies and some beans just to make a little bit more well-rounded and satisfying quick lunch or dinner that you can put together in 10 to 15 minutes or less. So we will start out by chopping up some garlic. So I've got a head of garlic here and I'm just going to pull out about 2 cloves. You could also use the pre-minced jarred garlic if that's what you have and prefer, but I'm going to use fresh because I've got it. So if you kind of grip that knife at the top of the blade, that gives you a little bit more control over the blade once we're ready to cut, but I'm going to use it just to kind of crush that garlic. So you saw how he leaned some pressure on it, and that kind of helps that skin get peeled off of the garlic. So we'll crush it again. It's just a lot easier than trying to peel it without crushing. And as a bonus, it kind of crushes up the garlic a little bit too. So we'll cut off that stem end. I'm just kind of tossing it into a pile. It's all going to go in my compost heap in the end. And I'm feeling like I might want 1 more clove of garlic, so we can cut off that stem end first, and you can also crush it after that. This is a pretty big clove of garlic, so taking a little bit of power. So I've got that peeled off, and then we'll just chop it right up. Garlic is something that's a little bit of an extra step, but it's really delicious and adds a ton of flavor and kind of that home-cooked feeling to a recipe. So whereas you could definitely make a quesadilla and just throw some cheese on a tortilla, pop it in the microwave for 30 seconds and be done. If you're making a meal, you can take a little bit of extra time when you got it and make it something special. So this is the first of our, I guess, 3 vegetables that are going to go in. So next we've got up an onion. I've just got this half an onion that I had laying around. So I'm going to cut off that bulb end, and this onion has probably seen better days. So I know once I peel off the skin, I've got a little bit on the inside too that I'm not going to want, where it's kind of dried out here. So I'm just going to slice it and then pick out that part that's a little bit dried out. So again, it maybe isn't the freshest onion that's ever been, but it's still very edible. So I want to repurpose it, really minimize my food waste for the sake of my budget, as well as, being earth friendly. So I'm just going to pick out some of those little dry parts. It's a dry skin just like is on the outside. I'm not sure how that happens, but there it is. I'll toss it in that bowl with my garlic. And then our next veggie is just going to be a red pepper. So red peppers, bell peppers, are the same as an orange, yellow, or green bell pepper. They've just been ripened on the vine the longest. So that's why they tend to be the most expensive. We're just going to cut off the top. You can really do this any way you like. When you're cutting a veggie like this, well, first of all, we cut off the top, and then while I adjust my stove. Then we're going to pull out the seeds from the inside. So the seeds of a bell pepper are not going to be irritants or spicy like those in a jalapeno. So we're just going to pull them out by hand, kind of give it a tap, and they'll fall out. No big deal. Wouldn't be a big deal if much end up in your recipe either. And then I'm just going to lay it down on its flat end, so you always want to have a nice stable surface to cut on, and then cut it into slices. I think I'm probably going to end up only using about half this bell pepper and save the other half for later, but I will go ahead and cut it up, because then when I want to cook something in the next day or two, I'll be really excited to open my fridge and already have some pre-diced up bell pepper, make things a little bit quicker later on. Whoops, almost dropped that one. So now we've kind of got a little pile of, I think of them as being like little logs or sticks, and then we can cut perpendicularly and just get kind of like a chunky dice there. Doesn't have to be anything, super fine. I like my vegetables to be a little bit chunky, so I'm also trying to work quickly because it's dinner time and I'm hungry. So I'm going to toss that in the bowl with our garlic and our onion. And then I'll go ahead and cut up the rest of this pepper so I can save it for later. So just being efficient, not having to do this work twice later on. Red peppers, like I said, they're the same plant as bell peppers, but since they are on the plant longer, they're a little bit sweeter, not as bitter, and they're really high in vitamins A, C, as well as beta carotene. So red peppers, a little bit more nutritious than green, but both are great. So I'm going to use some canola oil, and I'm going to start heating it up in my pan. And you can see in the background I've got a little white rice cooking. So I had white rice cooking, I'll tell you in a second. We're using some taco seasoning. This one is a 40% less sodium product. So that means that compared to the original product, there's 40% less sodium. So we're using a teaspoon, and I'm just going to throw that on that bowl of veggies I had. and we'll start cooking them in a second, but I'll show you on the package. This has 260 milligrams, and that's referring to that 2 teaspoon serving size. We're only using 1 teaspoon. So it's 11% of the daily value for the recommended intake for sodium. But again, we're only consuming about half of that. So just know that that packaging labeling on the front where it said 40% less is referring the usual product. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a low sodium product. So that's just going to give us a little bit of flavor. And you could also use something like mix up your own seasoning blend, like with chili powder and cumin and oregano, and kind of make your own taco seasoning if you've got all those things. But if you don't, taco seasoning is pretty inexpensive, a good thing to have around. So we're just cooking this down, letting the veggies cook till they're soft. No big deal. Then we can take them out of the pan and start heating up our tortillas. So we brown it on one side, and then once it's a little bit browned, we flip it over. Browning it and heating it up kind of makes it just that little something extra. Like I said, better than throwing it in the microwave where it's kind of soft. And then I'm gonna throw some black beans on it. So it's, again, just an example of something that's really simple, really quick to make, but taking a couple extra steps to add the beans and the veggies really increases things like dietary fiber, vitamin A, vitamin C, magnesium, and calcium that you wouldn't have if you just threw a cheese and tortilla into the microwave. Kind of rounds out the meal a little bit more. And like I said, I use white rice because I wanted it to be done in 15 minutes instead of 45. And I just threw a little bit of squeeze of lime juice on afterwards, and it made a really nice meal. So that was your quick and easy black bean and veggie quesadilla. Thanks for stopping by the UHC Nutrition Kitchen. The Health Promotion Department at the University Health Center is here to offer support and keep you connected during spring 2020. For more information, please check out our Be Well UGA at homepage at the University Health Center for more information on virtual programs and services.